Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto anime review. This one's going to be out for episode 242. This was an okay episode. It was solid, like a lot of the arc has been, but it really didn't overly impress me. It's our first time in a while having like a proper, I suppose, action scene. And while it was cool to get Seiren's powers revealed, and that created a little bit of a nice dynamic in the fight itself, I was not super happy overall with the presentation of the fight beyond just sort of some general tactics. I didn't like that. Once again, this is another one of those fights where like Boruto just doesn't use any jutsu at all in either sort of directly attacking or kind of particularly clever ways. Even though the fight sort of starts off with a somewhat clever use of shadow clones. Similarly, Kagura is also involved in the fight, and he still does not use the powers of his sword, even though we know that sword has powers, and it's quite unique what it can do. That to me showed that this was not meant to be viewed as a particularly significant fight. That the animation and the writing of the fight didn't feel like you needed to have any particularly interesting sort of choreography as such. The way the fight comes to an end, I think, also shows that it's very, very basic. After a whole episode of highlighting how good of a sniper she is, how good she is at managing the range, for her to be defeated by the very basic tactic of she fires a shot at Kagura, he blocks it, Boruto charges in, she focuses on him, and while she's focusing on him, Kagura just, attacks from the side. Very, very basic, to the point where you feel like the way she was presented otherwise in the episode, she shouldn't have been taken out by this. You needed to have, I think, a whole extra layer of kind of subterfuge on top of that, transformation, clones, something that creates a proper distraction for someone who otherwise hasn't really been distracted. Now, I get it, they added the whole sort of the thunder is sort of masking her, it's blocking her echolocation thing, so she wasn't able to fully keep track of everyone. But it was so basic, I didn't quite like it in the end. If there was maybe more of a fight, more of a build-up to things, I think I would have liked it a bit better, but it just felt not great to me. The same with some of the other parts of the episode as well, that the whole leech things of them controlling people, I felt like it was barely a plot point in the episode, that it was just sort of resolved in the background with the other characters doing stuff. I liked the scene where Metal talked to Hebichigo, because at least they addressed that from the previous episode, that Hebichigo is out to try and escape, and she's not really fighting for Kagura in all of this. She's fine if he dies, because that will mean she's free. But I like that sort of the earnestness of Metal in just being normal around her, treating her normal, like an ally in all of this, combined with Kagura so kind of casually reincorporating her back into the plans, even after she's like, wait, what, you want to use me after I tried to kill you? Okay. It feels like she hasn't fully been sort of convinced, but she's kind of a little bit more back on track now, so I'm interested in that. Not sure what exactly the Metal Hebichigo connection is beyond just that, Hebichigo is very skeptical of how much Kagura is trying to help them. And I suppose Metal counters that skepticism with just kind of raw earnestness. That's kind of nice. Other than that, one thing I thought was a little weird in the episode was the whole... I still don't entirely understand why Seiren has a disguise, and what the idea of that is about. In that, within this episode, they did a thing where both Boruto and Ikada now know both of her forms, because during the last episode, Boruto walked past her while she was in her sort of disguised form, which is the form she attacks Boruto in. But then she pops out of that disguise and he sees her normal form. And now Ikada talked to her in her disguised form and then sees her at the end of this episode injured in her other form. Now, Boruto doesn't really react to this, and all that much, and Ikada also doesn't really react to it. So I don't know what the whole point of her even having a disguised form really was. Other than, like, is she just really well known? And so her disguised form is only known to a few people? That just was not particularly clear to me what the idea was. In that, like, if Ikada recognizes her in both forms, who was it for? But that's just what's going on in the episode. And I'll be really honest, like, I don't have too much to talk about with this one, because it's so clear that we're still waiting to see what happens with regards to the big fights being set up. They continue to tease that, like, we're basically about to get it, but we're not quite ready for the main Mist versus Fanato fight. The preview for the next episode is more teasing the idea that the Leaf Village characters are about to leave, so they're probably going to last minute discover some of the bigger connections and stay to help. So I'm not sure if next episode is going to be just more of a kind of middle of the road episode, or if they might actually do some bigger reveals. We'll have to wait and see on that. But yeah, the fight was the main thing, and it just didn't blow me away. What is the main thing. It had a few nice cuts of animation, but just the sort of ambition of the fight didn't seem particularly, like, high. That Boruto's big scene was basically him running towards her. And it was nicely animated, but it was just him running towards her and I think throwing, like, a shuriken. And that was Boruto in this episode. I understand, like, that there maybe isn't overly effective ways to do it, but typically, like, when they are willing to put the effort into a big fight, it doesn't really matter if attacks go to waste, because they're just chucking everything at each other and the animation is big and bombastic. Why not just do that here to add a little bit of flair to the fight? That's my main kind of issue with all of this. So the big thing I think we're building up towards is Ikada is upset at what happened to his sister. His sister is the only one in the family who seems to sort of care about him properly. But even then, she got a bit annoyed at him, and he seems sort of like almost trapped by the situation that now even his sister is sort of demanding he come back to the clan. But it seems like he does have a connection to her and is upset that she seems to be badly injured. So he seems connected to this now and will want some sort of revenge potentially against who did this to her. The guy knows that it was Boruto and Kagura, but it only says Kagura to him. I guess he doesn't know about the Boruto connection to Ikada, so that will be a reveal that has to come out. So you're setting up basically the scene of Ikada and Boruto encounter each other, and the reveal comes out that Boruto, I suppose, assisted with what got his sister injured for Ikada, and then for Boruto, just making the connection of, like, oh, those two are brother and sister, and they're Amari's children, and they're part of the Fanato clan all at the same time. And just both sides being rocked, that this previously strong friendship is now fractured because of the opposing sides of what's happening here. Now, I still think they'll turn Ikada around, because his connection to the boss, the shipbuilding, his dream, is bigger than, I think, anything else. But how we get there will be interesting. We still have to address the sort of sea dragon powers, his mysterious powers, which are the strongest of anyone, I suppose will be potentially awakened by his anger at what happened to his sister. So we'll see what twists and turns they have along the way and how they exactly incorporate things in. In that sense, this is decent setup for stuff that will happen, but I just don't think it was that strong of an episode on its own. So that's all I wanted to say about this one. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were, but that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.